You've probably heard that ancient humans died before 30. Sometimes the number is 25, sometimes it's 35, but the message is always the same. Life was brutally short, and most people barely made it out of young adulthood. And honestly, when you think about what daily life looked like back then, it sounds completely believable. But here's the thing, that statistic is both accurate and almost completely misunderstood. And once you see what's actually hiding behind it, your entire picture of ancient life changes. This video is going to walk through the real reasons ancient humans died young, and some of them are genuinely surprising, not the dramatic saber-toothed cat version you've probably imagined. The real answer is stranger, more ordinary, and in some ways more unsettling. I've spent a lot of time going through the archaeological and anthropological research on this, and what I found kept catching me off guard. So let's get into it. The first thing we need to clear up is what that life expectancy number actually means, because this is where almost everyone goes wrong. Imagine a group of 10 children born into an ancient community. 5 of them die before their second birthday, from infection, from cold, from malnutrition, from complications at birth. The other 5 survive childhood, grow up, and live to around 60. So what's the average lifespan of that group? About 31 years. But here's the thing. Nobody in that group actually died at 31. Half died as toddlers, half became elders. The average is technically correct, and it tells you almost nothing useful about what adult life actually looked like. That's the trap buried inside ancient life expectancy statistics. When researchers calculate average lifespan, they include everyone, including the enormous number of children who never made it to adulthood. And for most of human history, childhood was extraordinarily dangerous. In some traditional populations studied by anthropologists, nearly a third of children died before reaching adulthood. In others, closer to half. Think about a classroom of 30 kids. Now imagine 15 of them don't survive to see their teenage years. That was the reality many ancient families lived with. So the statistic isn't wrong. It's just describing something most people don't expect it to be describing. The low life expectancy wasn't caused by adults dropping dead at 30. It was caused by children dying in massive numbers before they ever got the chance to grow up. But that raises a different question. If you did survive childhood, if you made it through those first brutal years, what actually killed you then? And this is where it gets genuinely interesting because the answer isn't what most people picture. Let's start with something that doesn't sound dramatic at all, a small cut. Today, you slice your hand while making dinner. You wash it, maybe put a bandage on it, forget about it by next week. 30,000 years ago, that same cut could start a countdown. The wound gets infected. The infection spreads into the bloodstream. You develop a fever, and nobody around you knows why. Nobody understands what's happening inside your body. The people who care about you can keep you warm and bring you water. That's about it. Antibiotics didn't exist for almost all of human history, and without them, infections that we'd treat in a day or two were capable of killing otherwise healthy adults. An abscessed tooth, a thorn puncture, a gash from a hunt, any of these could become fatal, not because ancient humans were fragile, but because there was no safety net once something went wrong inside the body. And injuries happened constantly. Ancient humans climbed cliffs, scaled trees, crossed rocky terrain, and hunted animals that did not want to be hunted. A wounded deer can kick, a boar can gore, a bison, even a dying one, can crush a person. Skeletal remains from ancient populations are full of evidence. Healed fractures, broken bones, severe trauma consistent with falls from height. There were no ropes, no harnesses, no helmets, and no emergency rooms. A bad fall in the wrong place didn't just hurt, it could leave you immobile, which in a world where survival required constant movement was often a death sentence on its own. Then there were the threats you couldn't even see. Parasites were everywhere. Intestinal worms, flukes, and other internal parasites were a normal part of life for most ancient humans. They didn't kill quickly, but they drained the body over months and years, stealing nutrition, weakening the immune system, leaving people more vulnerable to everything else. You wouldn't necessarily know something was wrong. You'd just feel tired, feel weak, feel like you weren't recovering the way you should. And in an environment where your physical condition determined whether you ate, that slow drain could quietly tip the scales. Starvation worked the same way. It wasn't always a dramatic collapse. It was often a slow accumulation of bad luck. A failed hunt, then another. A drought that wiped out the plants a group had been counting on. A winter that lasted longer than anyone expected. Hunter-gatherer survival depended heavily on environmental conditions that nobody could control, and when those conditions turned against a group, there was no backup supply, no food imported from somewhere else. Children and elderly people felt it first, but eventually everyone did. Now, something that often gets overlooked, and this one genuinely surprised me when I dug into it, is that one of the most dangerous things an ancient human could do was give birth. The human brain grew so large over the course of our evolution that it created a serious mechanical problem. The baby's head barely fits through the birth canal. In many cases, it doesn't fit easily at all. A difficult delivery could kill the baby, kill the mother, or kill both of them, and there was almost nothing anyone could do about it. Studies of traditional societies and fossil evidence both suggest that maternal mortality during childbirth was dramatically higher than anything we experience today. Every person alive right now exists because generation after generation of their ancestors somehow made it through that process, and many didn't. So when you add it all up, infections from minor wounds, injuries with no medical care, parasites quietly weakening the body, unpredictable food supplies, and the enormous risks of childbirth, a picture starts to form. And it's not the one most people imagine. It's not a world where everyone was constantly being chased by predators. It's a world where ordinary things killed people because there was nothing in place to stop them when they went wrong. That's actually the most important insight here. The biggest difference between ancient life and modern life isn't that ancient humans faced more dramatic dangers, it's that they had no safety net. A minor infection today is a prescription. A difficult birth today is a surgical team. A broken leg today is a cast and some time off. In the ancient world, each of those things could be the end. And here's what makes this even more striking. The people who did make it through all of that regularly lived into their 50s, 60s, and beyond. Archaeologists have found prehistoric skeletons belonging to individuals who were clearly quite old when they died. These weren't rare exceptions. Elders existed in ancient communities and they were genuinely valuable, carrying decades of knowledge that existed nowhere else, because nothing was written down. An elder who remembered the last drought knew where water could still be found. An elder who had survived a bad winter knew which routes to avoid. Lose that person, and that knowledge was gone forever. Old age wasn't a burden ancient societies had to manage. It was one of their most important resources. So the real story of why ancient humans died young is actually two separate stories running at the same time. One is about the enormous number of children who never reached adulthood, pulling the average lifespan down in ways that make the statistics look more extreme than the lived experience actually was. The other is about the adults who did survive, and the ordinary, accumulating dangers that could end even a healthy life without warning, because there was simply nothing there to catch them when something went wrong. If you want to go deeper on what daily life actually looked like for ancient humans, the nights, the fires, the sleep patterns, the things that would genuinely surprise you, there's another video on this channel that covers exactly that. I'll link it at the end. And if you found this one interesting, subscribing means you'll see the next one when it comes out, which honestly is the easiest way to keep this kind of content coming. One last thing worth sitting with. When people talk about human progress, they usually point to technology, planes, computers, medicine, and those things are remarkable. But one of the most significant things that changed between the ancient world and today is something far more basic. We figured out how to keep children alive. Clean water, vaccines, antibiotics, safer childbirth. None of these things created old age. Old age was always possible. What they did was make it far more likely that a person born today would actually get the chance to experience it. For most of human history, that was the hardest part. Not living to 80, just surviving long enough to try.